And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Monique McNeil, Vice President for SEDFOP Inc. Also joining me is Dr. Nancy V. Brown, educator at NV My Hair Academy. Ladies, it's a pleasure to have you on the air today, and there is so much we want to talk about. But most importantly of all is Roe versus Wade. It seems to me that the Supreme Court had officially dismantled this piece of constitution that was so relevant to women. And one thing that bothers me, how can a sovereign nation like this, almost for 50 years, just overturn something that protected women, not just for the formation of abortion, but the reality is that this is something that had protected women's health. If you look at Planned Parenthood, we know that on several occasions that there are all kind of gynecological reasons why women go and get care. They want to stop probability of contraceptives. There's so much here at stake. It's an infringement on women's rights. And, you know, you or Dr. Brown, I want your opinion, really, on what you think about this and what it means for women.
Well, for me, I think we definitely there's so many different points that we can talk about when it comes to this topic, because no one's situation is the same. You never know what someone is dealing with. You don't know what's at stake, what's going on with their health. There's just so much that comes with this. As a child sexual abuse survivor for myself, and just even knowing a lot of people who have been through sexual abuse and that type of trauma, to add pregnancy to that equation. And then, what if it's somebody's brother, somebody's cousin, somebody's father who they're impregnated by? I just think that that's just not a right thing to ask a victim to do. The suicide rate has been going up. It has not slowed down at all. And this new law can possibly impact that number going up really fast. Kids, a lot of these kids, they're in college, they find out that they're pregnant. Sometimes they don't even know that they're pregnant till after they're 4 or 5 weeks. Sometimes people have, and I've watched the show where people have actually gone into labor and didn't know that they were pregnant. So this is a very difficult choice that I don't think that we're in any position to make choices for people. I don't think that we're in positions to make those type of choices for people's bodies. It's a very serious law.
Well, Moni, this is one of the things that bothers me. We can find it possible to destroy women's rights, want to protect an unborn babe, but yet still you can destroy a part of the Constitution, and when it comes to the Second Amendment, you can't do anything about it. And I believe in a sovereign nation that you just can't go about dismantling a piece of Constitution. I believe you can amend the Constitution, improve on it for the times and seasons that you're in, but you can't rip it apart. And this is exactly what happening here. Now, I don't condone a woman going out there and having casual sex for the pleasure of it, get pregnant, then to go on and destroy that child. I'm not that kind of person to think that's what a woman should do. But there are situations where a woman could be raped, like what Dr. Brown was just stating, whether it's by grandfather, father, brother, uncle, cousin, whatever the case may be. And that is a lifetime of trauma she has to deal with. The choice should be totally hers, not the government. So what's your intake on that?
Well, I would have to definitely agree with you, Errol and Dr. Brown, Dr. Nancy V. Brown Willis, is that Roe versus Wade was a constitutional right for a woman to have control over their bodies. And it was a constitution guarantee that they had the right to choose. So there's so many implications that when this law was tampered with and that it was turned back. As Nancy, you stated, there's many, many medical implications that really affect this decision-making process and the right that they took away. A lot of times, as you spoke upon, there are sexual abuse situations, there's medical situations, so to take away such a dignified right from a woman to, and I had the pleasure to speak to some women who, remember when this law was illegal, and they watched the pain and the brutality that their friends endured being pregnant or going through some type of backdoor abortions because they were raped or things that happen. And I spoke to women who said that they watched the pain, and some of these women were permanently scarred from having such an aggressive type of procedure done. And then to watch it become legal, how dignified women felt that they were finally liberated and able to have control over their bodies and to be given the power to make that decision and to have their voice and their bodies matter. Then to end up today in 2022 and be back where they started before 1970s. It's horrifying. It's really horrifying to think that we could go backwards and such a liberating and constitutional right that was given. How could you give such a right, such power to women and take that away from them just like that? Just when, especially when you're looking at the numbers, when, over 57, 60% of women, of people agree that the law should be as it is and should not be touched or hindered. So to have that overturned, it really makes me question the stability of our process, the legality of our constitutional rights, and that they could be played with or turned back when, in my mind, these rights are given precedent and protected under law. So it's really confusing to a lot of people, to a lot of Americans right now. It's a very sad day in America.
Can I say something
Sure,
to
go
that?
right ahead, doctor.
We're not condoning, and we're not really coaching anyone to go ahead and go get an abortion. Okay, there are steps to making this decision. I believe that we should focus on providing mental health services where these women can get some counseling, some support to go over options. There also needs to be a child plan. They're trying to make people give up their child for adoption. That's not an option for a lot of people. They don't want to live with that for the rest of their lives. And so, are you going to give us health care for this child? Are you going to give us food assistance for this child? Are you going to give us some daycare for this child? Are you going to give us maybe some child support for this child? What is it that you're going to give me since you're so strong hold on me having this child when I'm ready and telling you that I don't want to go through with this pregnancy? And that right is taken away from me. It's like another form of violation. It's another form of abuse. And I really believe that women who have financial means, okay, they're going to travel to get these abortions. They're going to pay for the right health care. Whereas women who don't have the means are probably going to end up getting a butch job somewhere and get an infection and dying because now they're desperate trying to figure out, hey, I'm trying to finish my schooling. I'm at this place. The man left me. He this, he that, he tried to kill me. I just want to get out of this situation. Those options are taken away from you. And people that are dealing and battling with their mental health, many times they'll do things out of desperation and try to get this abortion themselves from somebody who they know that could do abortions with hangers in their basement. And I just think it's really important that we talk about this. This is a really serious situation. What is the baby plan for those who choose to keep their babies, since we're fighting so hard for these babies to stay, and not thinking about the victim who was raped by, like we talked about earlier, her grandfather, her father, her brother, and now she's being forced and has no right against her body. That's another form of violation. That's another form of rape. That's another form of trauma It's like a very serious situation. And people who've never been in that situation, they don't have the mental capacity to make any of these choices because they don't comprehend what it feels like. You have to really understand what it feels like. And sometimes it has to happen to your own child, your own daughter. Sometimes it has to happen to you for it to click in your brain, for you to see that it's a big problem and it's not fair. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. Going back to what you said, Dr. Brown, I don't think a lot of people sometimes really take into account the risks that is associated with giving birth. There's a lot of risks that us as women endure when we choose to have a baby, and not alone to think about the medical risks that are associated when you don't really have that choice. Looking at someone like myself, I went through a lot of medical complications having my son, and it nearly cost me my life. But that was a choice that I made, was to have my son. I loved my son, and that was my personal choice to endure that risk. I can't imagine if that risk was forced upon me, if I didn't have the opportunity to choose to go through with this life risking situation that I endured. So to piggyback on what you're saying, doctor, it's just, we need to take a look at the medical implications. We need to take a look at the mental health that is associated with these things. Yes.
I
agree with you.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mr. Arrow.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something in regards to what Ms. Monique just mentioned. Is, we're talking about the medical implications. They're saying that even if the fetus dies inside of your body, you're not allowed to abort it. So you're supposed to walk around with a dead fetus inside of you, which is really a health hazard. Just to have anything dead and decaying inside of your body,
It's a death
the
trap.
toxins are released and you can die. Blood poisoning. You don't know. This is serious. This is serious stuff. And people are talking from a place of, when you talk from a place without knowledge or wisdom, it's really big trouble. It's like, who's the visionary guiding this ship? And, I have a very narrow pelvic. So I have 4 children and all my children were C-sections. Okay. So, a man, someone who does not have a pelvic bone, someone who does not have a uterus, someone who has never given birth, it's really difficult to have certain conversations. Someone who's never been raped, certain conversations that you can't have with certain people. Only certain people should be allowed in the room to make decisions that impact such a serious situation. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be rules. There are those serial abortionists. Okay. There's some people that be, God, I'm just gonna go get an abortion. And you're like, wait a minute now. Okay. There's right, there's wrong. But every situation is different. So we don't have the right to take away people's right to choose.
Absolutely. I think also it is, the Constitution had become fragmented. It's a deep wound, a political wound, and it's causing a political bacterial infection. And what I see coming out of all of this is that no part of the Constitution now is safe from getting overturned. The 1964 Bill of Rights Act, I believe, will be next. And that, in its sense, is going to cause more chaos than even it was before in the Jim Crow years. And when you have a bunch of supreme judges playing God to a sovereign nation because they are in position to do so, without adequate knowledge about scientific methods and theories and concepts of the biological structure of a woman and what complications can come about by even having a dead child in her womb, or for some gynecological reason that she has to attend Planned Parenthood to get assistance, or some major reason she should be using contraceptives to prohibit pregnancy because of the complications she may inherit if becoming pregnant. These are things or questions that I don't even believe these people had sensibly asked themselves. And this is a national trauma to women. It's an infringement on their rights, and this is something that women work hard for decades to even have the right to vote. It's going right back down to the ancient times when women were only perceived to be there to do domestic chores and become carriers of babies and there to give a man what he need, food, clothing, whatever the case may be. And I see this ancient spirit manifest itself, not just here in the United States in this form, but there in Russia. And it tells me that women today may have to take a more firm stance when, and this again is infringement on their rights, whom they should have sex with and whatever the case may be. But I also believe that it's going to pose a threat, and this is just my opinion, women may start hating men because of this very act. And it may not look good. I'm just saying this from a normal standpoint, but when a woman falls in love with a man and she thinks that she may be pregnant and she recognizes there are certain issues that she are faced with, especially if the man says, well, I don't want a baby, what's going to happen? She can't get rid of the baby. Will she get revengeful and say, look, man, you're going to die, or I'm going to get you one way or the next? These are other micro things that we not yet start to look at, but it can build this whole complex situation of hatred towards men. And that in the way how God really designed this world to be.
I agree. I just, I kept writing down trauma. So I'm glad that we're all in the same place, understanding that this is going to induce a lot of trauma. The murder rate, the suicide rate, the depression rate, we've been trying to get those numbers to go down. This is not going to help. This is only going to make it go up. So this is something very serious. Yeah. Side chicks are going to be getting pregnant. They're not going to be able to just run and go take care of it privately. This is really becoming, it affect big secrets in the family. It's just it will create things and scenarios for people to get more depressed and go die by suicide. Because this a lot.
Right.
And to piggyback off of what you're saying, this ruling has come down at the most pivotal time within our society. Right now, it's an 8-month waiting list just to get a therapist on your own, just to get a licensed clinician or a counselor. A mental health services are obsolete these days. There's not enough licensed clinicians or therapists available. There's not enough of the supply to actually meet the need. So it's just adds fury to the fire of what this will be, and what the end results will be. It's so far reaching than what's upon the surface. Just like you mentioned, Arrow, they're going to take away Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood just isn't used for abortions. People go there to receive contraceptive care, to go there to receive feminine care or help, whether it's condoms or whatever the case may be. It's not just for abortions. And that's the first thing they're going to do is attack or defund these community centers, which are really utilized, especially by the inner city communities, especially by people who, don't really have access to health care. And that's the first thing they're going to do is start attacking these institutions, like I said, such as Planned Parenthood or other places that provide care. And it's just astronomically traumatizing what it will do. It's more than what scratches the surface. It goes beyond that.
Well, one thing here we know for a fact is that we all here have Christian principles and values in our lives. And I am amazed at how religion, I don't want to say Christianity, religion and religious concepts and theories, not pattern of the foundation or principles of God teachings, are deployed in a society where evangelicals somewhat worship both gods, the God of politics, and they think they're worshiping the true and living God. And these are the same people who have their ideological theories about what both men and women, a lot of these evangelicals are in on this. And it doesn't align really theoretically with what God would have teach. He gave us choices. He's going to be the final judge in everything. If you decide to kill 1 million babies, you yourself have to answer to God for doing that. Who is man to play God when that same man is going to take your child and draft it for some political, ideological concept and send it into battle to fight and get killed? All right? That's the political ideology of doing that. That's all fair for them. But you, your mom, with your own ideological concept that having this baby may pose a threat to my life or mental sanctity, if I get rid of it, I'm doing something wrong. So indirectly, the government can put your child into battle by a draft and have it killed in the forefront of a battle, but they can't put nothing in place to protect the mom with an unborn child. I can't figure it out. So this is basically a political gimmick, and not a gimmick, a political fact. So we have those judges in the Supreme Court that think they says it all, and it is used for a political stunt. One administration is going to benefit from this decision in the next general election, and the other administration will fall. Doctor, how do you sum up this situation right now as we stand? What advice would you give to young women out there to get rid of the potential stress and problems that they may be faced with should they become pregnant?
The first thing I want to say, unfortunately, united we stand, divided we fall. And so we need to be on the same page to make sure that we are working together as a nation. Okay. As far as you're asking me, what would I tell the young girls if what?
Would you want to tell them to abstain from sex? I mean, that's not in their nature. That's not that's not practical.
I think this is a time that we really, really, really need to focus on education heavily at school. A lot of the sex education programs and all those type of programs, they've been kind of sheltering the kids a little bit. We've been kind of really careful about certain words, certain information that we bring in. But I think that now we need to get like hardcore on education about, how to speak up if you're being abused, education on contraceptives, how to use them, what the options are. The parents getting more involved in these conversations and doing trainings for the parents as well. I'm sorry.
But how contraceptives are going to be beneficial to them if it look or appears that they may no longer be contraceptives?
Well, I mean, at this point, this is what we're facing. We have to just really be transparent because a lot of us parents, we have a hard time. We don't want to expose our children to a lot of things. Like this world is already so full of, you don't really get a chance to protect your children. They're so advanced. At school, they're learning so much from their friends. So we need to be more aggressive with our education. We need to be more real about our problems, what we're dealing with. And we need to get the parents involved or caretakers more involved in this process so that we're all working together on the same page. Because stand, divided we fall.
Absolutely.
That's why these kids are behind our back getting pregnant and behind our back doing certain stuff, because we're scared they know more than what we think they know.
Okay.
We need to feel comfortable talking to them about the problems and what's going on and about the new rules that are going on, so that they're really now, instead of being like, I didn't know, right? We fall because of lack of knowledge. We need to talk about this more, and we need to educate our children, let them know this is what it is. This is what's going on.
Well, Monique, we're down to the last minute. Would you want to put in your final piece on it, Monique?
Absolutely. To go back to what you have mentioned, Errol, is that the next thing is going to be a ban on contraceptives, and to also piggyback on what you said, Doctor, is that they're so eager to take away the contraceptives and to take away preventative measures from having children, but they don't really want to offer services to take care of these children. So it's just a real backwards. The whole thing just is so, when I sit here and I think about logic, okay, with every decision we make, it has to be practical and it has to make sense. And this doesn't make any sense. I can only imagine how we look to our friends and fellow people around the world, and what they're thinking about decision making and the Constitution, or how that was a sacred document. And it's just it just has no value now, because what was given was taken away.
Yes, we're on the last few seconds.